I want to talk about what this is really about. The Kyle Rittenhouse case is about more than Kyle Rittenhouse. It's about more than the riots. Yep. This may be one of the most consequential cases of our lifetimes. As the rioters traveled across the country last year, burning down buildings and smashing windows, with the reporting from Michael Tracy, some of the most important I've ever seen, where he actually went to these small towns you've never heard of and saw the damage from the riots. They have defended these rioters. They have protected people like Gage Grosskreutz when the prosecution instructed the detectives not to execute search warrants. Take a look at this story from the Daily Caller. The prosecutor in the Rittenhouse trial says, "You lose the right to self-defense when you're the one who brought the gun." A major component of this trial. This is not about Kyle Rittenhouse in the bigger picture. It is about your right to keep and bear arms. Now, I will say, when you look at constitutional carry, gun rights have been winning. But this is a major assault on the culture around it. We can win in the courts. We can win in the legislature. But if they can set precedent that if you bear a gun, you are always the provocateur, always the instigator, and never entitled to self-defense, that's the argument being played here. If the jury sides with the prosecution, you will start hearing attempts where they say, in the case of the State v. Rittenhouse, the jury found that if you're bringing a weapon to a fist fight, you are provoking, blah blah blah. I'm probably getting this a bit wrong. I'm not a lawyer, so maybe that context isn't correct. Maybe it's precedent has to be set from a judge or something like that as a question of law. The point is, they're trying to make a cultural moment occur where Kyle Rittenhouse is guilty simply because he brought a gun. Now, mind you, the question's been answered. The judge, this was the most amazing moment. I was screaming. I was like, yes. The judge said to the prosecution, as a question of law, because that's what the judge deals with, the charge, count 6, on illegal possession of a deadly weapon by a person under 18. He is exempt because he was 17. He looks at the prosecution and said, can you prove the rifle he had was under 26 inches? And Krause goes, it was not under 26 inches. And the judge goes, count 6 dismissed. Nice. It was not an illegal weapon.
I think 16 inches is the correct length, because if it's 15.9,
it's 26
that's
overall.
When it's, yeah.
So barrel length is 16. 26 overall, I believe, or it might be 32, I'm not sure. The point is, the judge definitively said, dismissed. The law is not that complicated, in my opinion. It says, if you are under 18 and in violation of these provisions, which state you're under 16 without a permit, you're under 14 without a guardian or whatever, or you're hunting without a certificate. Okay, well, Kyle Rittenhouse is not violating any of those statutes. 17-year-olds are allowed to bear only rifles and shotguns. Kyle Rittenhouse said he knew he couldn't have a handgun. But I want to get back to the main point here that we need to make sure we're paying attention to. If Kyle Rittenhouse loses, they have that argument. They will use it. It will become culture, and law is meaningless in the face of culture. I've pointed this out many times. You guys all understand this. There are laws like you can't put an apple pie on your windowsill on Tuesday. Those laws still exist. They're archaic, and no one will ever enforce them. Why? Well, it would be absurd, because culturally, we don't do that anymore. But the law's there, and they could get you. Now, the problem, would a jury really convict you of an 1800s pie law or something like that? Give you a fine? I doubt they would. But this is what's important. If culture emerges, where in the media, in all of our institutions, if you have a gun, you are considered an instigator in any capacity. You will never be able to use a gun to defend yourself. They will always convict you.
Really encourage people to watch the trial. It's a blessing that we have this available, just to know, to see the smarminess of this guy and this Littlefinger. I mean, he looks like and acts like Littlefinger. It's crazy how much he's like Littlefinger.
He does, yeah, it's true.
And Kyle, I mean, particularly Kyle's testimony, because he's just like it was like his hometown, or like his dad lived there, and it was like his city.
His grandma lives there. His dad lives there. He works there. His best friend's there. I think his cousins are there.
Burnt down. Is it CarMax or
Car
Source?
Yeah,
like that's terrifying, man. And he's like a young American who was like, I need to defend my city.
It's really crazy how Ben and Jerry's lied. This is the funniest thing. I tweeted, even ice cream lies, and we know Ben and Jerry's is full of garbage.
Right.
But they tweeted, what if a 17-year-old black person, a black kid, carried a rifle illegally across state lines and killed 3 white people, as if what happened was a white person carried a weapon across state lines and killed 3 black people, which it didn't.
Their
happen.
Skin color did not matter when they were charging at that guy.
I don't care if Kyle Rittenhouse is white, black, Asian, male, female, 5 feet tall, 6 feet tall. It's funny how they're like, this is really important for self-defense as well. Cenk Uygur was like, so how would the right feel if a black teenager brought a rifle to a protest and then shot people and claimed self-defense? And every 2A person was like, oh, we would defend him.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know what I really love? When I was tweeting about 2A and the absolute rights, and people were like, I'd like to see you defend the Black Panthers having guns, Tim. And I said something like, abso-effing-lutely, every Black Panther should be armed. They are allowed to walk down those streets. They are allowed to be in this country, going wherever they please, with whatever gun they want. And then the socialists were like, based. I'm like, do you think we don't want people to have the right to bear arms and defend themselves?
Exactly. It's for everybody. It's for everybody. That's an American citizen. We have the Second Amendment here in the United States, whether left or right. And it's like they've
Black,
made it
white,
like
Asian.
it's all people. But what's interesting is how this has been so spun. If Kyle gets convicted, he will be the poster child for an active shooter. And anytime there's some kind of active shooting, this is not an active shooting situation, but they're going to use it as that. So now moving forward in the United States of America, whenever we do have some kind of situation like that, Kyle Rittenhouse, he will become some kind of poster child that's going to be used to attack the Second Amendment at the same time. But this is what they do. They'll take something that's a minority. I mean, we have active shootings happen in the United States, right? But it's not like this insane pandemic or crazy thing that's happening in the United States that's out of control. For the most part, people are responsible gun owners, right? But they do the same thing with COVID as well. There's a minority of numbers, but they blast it across the entire society where everyone has to be on lockdown, even though there's a minority of people that could actually die from. They do this with everything. They take the minority and they just spread it everywhere.
I want to address that. I don't think, first of all, let me just say, I want to say, I had COVID and I had it really, really bad. And I think did you have it really, really bad?
Yeah, I survived.
I had it like
Tim
legit.
survived too.
Me and Ian had it really bad.
Me too.
But I want to say this. I got really sick. Other people didn't get really sick. Some people got sniffles.
Yeah.
And so this is why I'm like, I actually think COVID's bad and we want to take it seriously, but we can't do a one-size-fits-all policy.
That's my point.
But so ultimate. But I don't want to just get into COVID. My main issue with it is, I don't think it's necessarily that the media and the establishment. Well, I should say the establishment and the elites do this on purpose. But for the bigger picture in the media, the reason why they highlight every fringe case, the reason why it seems like the apocalypse is happening with COVID, is because the media finds the story and reports it, but they don't report the non-story. So this is what happens with Antifa. Antifa goes out and they punch someone in the face. Is that national news? No, of course not. This is not. They do it 500 times. Not a single instance is national news. They riot across the country. Some of it reaches national news. Because it is low-level sustained terrorism, we don't hear about it all that much. The mainstream media, first of all, the establishment, they're biased. Kamala Harris actively fundraised for these people. So, of course, there's that. And then there's the media component of local news outlets, for instance, that aren't as, not always wrapped up in the manipulation. Local news outlets do a good job, but they're not going to report on a guy getting punched. Now, what happens if one fringe far-right winger gets a gun and goes and commits an atrocity? International headlines. Mm-hmm. And rightly so. I think rightly so. Absolutely. It's bad. It's abhorrent. We got to stop these people before they can carry this stuff out. It's difficult to figure out how to do that, but everyone will hear about it. And then for those of us that are in the news and reading the stories, we know that Antifa does this. Well, regular people don't, because they never hear it.
It's not just little crimes, though. I mean, there was people burned alive. There was people shot. There was a police officer trying to stop looting that was literally shot point blank on live streams, and it went viral on the internet, but it wasn't really that prominently talked on the mainstream media. But I think what's happening here is that obviously this case is politically polarized. Obviously, a lot of ways on this particular case, and I think that's why there's so much attention on it. There's so much hype on it, because I think the establishment wants to use this case as an example of you can't defend yourself. If you are a gun owner, you have a gun, you get attacked, you have to get attacked. And that's an absurd assertion that they're making, which essentially will leave a lot of people defenseless. And I think that's why a lot of people who are pro Second A are biased in this case, and obviously have something that weighs for them in this matter. For the left, a lot of their agenda weighs on this court decision. So this is going to have huge ramifications.
I really want to be careful with the left and the right. Leftists, socialists, love guns.
It's for everybody. 2A's for everybody.
It is younger, populist, socialist, lefty types. Mm-hmm. They are for gun rights. It is the establishment, liberal, democratic,
authoritarian
neoliberal
for the most part.
But
They want to strip
here's
people
the
wanna
thing
take
too,
away your rights.
to go to Luke's point, I think you're right.
Real
because-
quick, I'm sorry. I gotta say one real quick thing on this, because I can't let this one slide. The left loves guns until the leftists love guns until they get the power. Then they'll take your guns.
Yes.
Yeah, I think to go to Luke's point is, I think they might even want to do this to discourage people from even wanting to buy a gun in the first place. Oh, you want to buy a gun for self-defense? Well, look what happened to Kyle Rittenhouse. If
Legally
right,
carrying.
If Kyle gets convicted, right? I'm speaking hypothetically. Oh, you want to buy a gun for self-defense? Well, look what happened to him. If that happens to you, you're going to end up in that position too. So I think that could potentially discourage an entire generation from even wanting to own a firearm and literally uphold their Second Amendment.
Even
right?
without the verdict, look at the way that the mainstream media responded to this. They called him a white supremacist. They called him an active shooter. They called him guilty without even the trial beginning. Big tech social media censored people. Mainstream media organizations, corporate media organization showed up at people's doors for donating $10 to him. People who were in police departments were fired for donating $25 for him. So already we're having him kind of prosecuted in the eyes of big tech social media, the corporate media, which is going to discourage a lot of people already with this trial that happened with a lot of people's viewpoints. We have to understand, no matter what the jury decides here, there's a bigger verdict that's going to be kind of decided by the general public here that absolutely weighs. And I think you could see that today by some of the judges' comments. He looks like he's reacting to a lot of the outside influences here that are trying to push for a particular outcome for this case. So when this happens, I mean, this to me is just like the perfect divide and conquer agenda. I think this is why we're getting so much play on it, because there's so much weighing on this. And I think a lot of the establishment are seeing this as an opportunity to ram through a lot of their absolutely crazy policies that would disarm people, that would leave them defenseless. And at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know if this is the perfect case to make a stand here, but this is a very offensive case that the establishment is making here.
I'm actually scared. If Kyle Rittenhouse does get convicted, this is not the story of an evil ideologue. This is the story of a 17-year-old who said, I want to help everybody. This is the story of a 17-year-old who went to Kenosha, where his father lives, where his grandmother lives, where he works, where his best friend lives, where he drives through every day, and said, I will actively help even those who are rioting, who rendered aid to people and asked if they needed medical assistance, even though he's clearly not with them as an ideologue or a protester. Kyle Rittenhouse wasn't there for the right. He wasn't there for the left. He was just there to help. He didn't want fires, he didn't want destruction, and he didn't want those protesting to get hurt either.
So I keep bringing this up as something Steven Crowder talked about. He says this isn't really Kyle on trial here, which is great poetry. Oh, great. I got to adjust my mic.
Yeah, turn up a little bit.
Yeah, hold on. Let me adjust that.
This isn't Kyle on
So you guys
trial.
can hear me. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, this is all of us on trial.
Okay, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's everyone. And he's right, because Kyle is a normal person who's just trying to help his community. And people took issue with this being his community because he didn't live there. He worked there. He had family there. Like, if this isn't your community, what is your community? It's not just your literal neighborhood.
Yes, definitely his community.
Or your government address.
Right,
you know.
exactly.
Kenosha was a crime scene. It was a crime scene. It was literally a crime scene. And what people need to understand is there was a threat to the community. I mean, when I came, the first night I was there, drove back to Chicago, did a hit with Fox that night, and then went all the way back the third night back to the Kenosha scene. When I got back, I was talking to some of the locals. I interviewed them. I asked them, are you a Black Lives Matter supporter? This is on Twitter, Drew H. Live. You can see the interview. I asked her, are you a Black Lives Matter supporter in broad daylight? And I was like, do you condone the violent rioting? And she says, yes, this is the only way that we can have our voices heard.
You were there the first night and the third
This
night?
is the day of the Kyle Rittenhouse shooting. I'm asking these kind of
25th,
questions to these people, and this is what they're saying. Okay, so also I'm walking around, I'm talking to some of the locals. I interviewed the people that had their businesses burned down to the ground, and they're just confused. They're like, what do we have to do with Jacob Blake?
Right.
And I'm walking around the community. You're seeing boarded up windows. They're writing "Children live here" on them. Why do you think they're doing that? For peaceful protesters? You think they're scared of peaceful protesters? No, there's violent criminals that showed up with a political agenda to burn down a building that had to burn down a community that had nothing to do with them. Even right now, Tim, right now, when I was in Kenosha, I'm driving down the street. I show up. I'm just kind of like having flashbacks. I'm like looking around. I'm like, this is crazy. It's surreal to be here again. I drive by a building. It's a senior citizen home. The building is boarded up right now.
Wow.
And it says right now on the building the same thing. Senior citizens live here.
Yep.
Even right now,
And
they're
because
afraid. There's
they're
a threat.
not
Why?
afraid.
Why are they afraid right now? Why are they? Because there's a threat even right now. Why is the National Guard called out right now? Because of peaceful protesters?
Yes.
Because, hold on. Has anyone reported we expect a guilty verdict? No. Across the board, from Chris Hayes to Anna Kasparian, the narrative has been we were wrong about Kyle Rittenhouse. He's going to be acquitted. Now they're preparing for riots. How long can they keep lying to the American people about what the violence is, who the violence is coming from? Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.